Welcome back to WorldCoin USA. Before you spend another Washington quarter, stop and take a closer look. A simple-looking 1965, 1977, 1980D, or 1987D Washington quarter could be hiding a surprising secret. While millions of these coins were made, a few rare examples with mint errors or exceptional condition have become highly sought after by collectors. Could one of these valuable quarters already be sitting in your pocket, coin jar, or old collection? Stay with me until the very end, because today we're uncovering the complete history, fascinating facts, and the hidden details that make these four Washington quarters so interesting. Let's get started. The 1965 Washington quarter represents one of the most important turning points in the history of United States coinage because it was the first regular Washington quarter produced after the historic Coinage Act of 1965 changed the composition of American circulating coins. During the early 1960s, the United States faced a severe coin shortage as the market price of silver increased dramatically, causing people to save silver coins instead of spending them. Since Washington quarters minted before 1965 contained 90% silver, millions disappeared from circulation, creating serious problems for businesses, banks, and everyday commerce across the country. To solve this growing crisis, Congress passed the Coinage Act of 1965, authorizing the United States Mint to replace the traditional silver quarter with a copper nickel-clad coin that maintained the same appearance while eliminating the expensive silver content. The 1965 Washington quarter therefore became the first year of this historic transition and marked the beginning of a completely new era in American coin production. The obverse of the coin continued to feature the famous portrait of George Washington designed by John Flanagan, honoring the first president of the United States with a dignified profile that had appeared on the quarter since 1932. On the reverse, the classic heraldic eagle stood proudly on a bundle of arrows surrounded by olive branches, symbolizing both military strength and the nation's desire for peace. Although the design remained familiar to the American public, the internal structure of the coin was completely different. Instead of solid silver, the new quarter consisted of a pure copper core bonded between outer layers of copper and nickel, creating the durable clad composition that continues to be used for modern quarters today. Another remarkable feature of the 1965 Washington quarter is the absence of a mint mark. From 1965 through 1967, the United States Mint intentionally removed mint marks from circulating coins to discourage collectors from hoarding newly released pieces during the nationwide coin shortage. Because of this decision, genuine 1965 quarters do not display the familiar D or S mint mark even though they were produced at multiple mint facilities. The Philadelphia Mint, Denver Mint, and San Francisco Mint all participated in striking these coins under this temporary policy. Millions of 1965 quarters quickly entered circulation, helping restore confidence in the nation's coin supply and ensuring that businesses once again had enough change for daily transactions. While most circulated examples remain common today and are generally worth face value, collectors continue searching for exceptional uncirculated specimens with sharp details, brilliant original luster, and strong eye appeal. High-grade examples certified by professional grading services can command impressive premiums because preserving a 1965 quarter in nearly perfect condition is much more difficult than many people realize. In addition to condition rarity, collectors actively search for genuine mint error varieties including double dies, off-center strikes, clipped planchettes, broad strikes, and other authentic production mistakes created during the minting process. These verified mint errors are significantly more desirable than ordinary circulated coins and can attract strong interest at auctions depending on their rarity and preservation. The 1965 Washington quarter also reminds collectors of a fascinating moment when the United States government balanced economic necessity with tradition. Although Americans initially missed the familiar silver coins they had carried for generations, the new clad quarter successfully fulfilled its purpose by reducing production costs while maintaining public confidence in the nation's currency. Today, the 1965 Washington quarter is admired not because every example is extremely valuable, but because it represents a historic change that transformed American coinage forever. Every authentic 1965 quarter tells the story of innovation, economic challenges, and the beginning of a new chapter in United States mint history. For collectors and history enthusiasts alike, This coin remains an enduring symbol of one of the most significant transitions ever made in modern American circulating coinage, making it a fascinating piece to study, collect, and preserve for future generations. The history of the 1965 Washington quarter is closely connected to one of the most important changes in the history of American coinage. The Washington Quarter series originally began in 1932 to celebrate the 200th anniversary of the birth of George Washington, the first President of the United States. The coin was designed by sculptor John Flanagan, whose portrait of Washington became one of the most recognizable images on American currency. For more than 30 years, every circulating Washington quarter was struck from an alloy containing 90% silver and 10% copper. These silver quarters became an important part of everyday commerce throughout the United States and were used by millions of Americans for daily purchases. During the early 1960s, however, the United States faced a serious economic challenge. The market price of silver continued to rise, making the metal inside circulating coins increasingly valuable. Many people began removing silver coins from circulation, storing them in collections or melting them for their silver content. This widespread hoarding created a nationwide shortage of coins. Banks struggled to supply enough change, businesses experienced daily shortages, and the U.S. government realized that immediate action was necessary. To solve this problem, Congress passed the Coinage Act of 1965, one of the most significant laws in the history of modern American coinage. This legislation removed silver from circulating dimes and quarters and reduced the silver content of half dollars. The 1965 Washington quarter became the first regular circulating quarter struck in a copper-nickel clad composition instead of 90% silver. Although its appearance remained almost identical to earlier quarters, its internal structure was completely different. Each coin contained a pure copper core sandwiched between outer layers of copper and nickel, producing a durable coin that could be manufactured at a much lower cost. The familiar design remained unchanged. The obverse continued to feature the portrait of George Washington facing left, with the inscriptions, "Liberty, in God We Trust," and the date, 1965. The reverse displayed the classic eagle standing on a bundle of arrows surrounded by olive branches, symbolizing America's commitment to both strength and peace. This reverse design had become a symbol of the Washington Quarter series and remained in use until 1998. One of the most unusual characteristics of the 1965 Washington Quarter is the absence of a mint mark. From 1965 through 1967, the United States Mint intentionally removed mint marks from circulating coins to discourage collectors from hoarding newly released coins during the nationwide shortage. As a result, authentic 1965 Washington quarters do not display a D or S mint mark even though they were produced under the Mint's temporary emergency production policy. The United States Mint produced hundreds of millions of 1965 quarters to restore the nation's coin supply. These coins quickly entered circulation across the country and became part of everyday American life. Their durability, lower production cost, and familiar appearance helped the transition from silver coinage to clad coinage occur with relatively little disruption. Today, most circulated 1965 Washington quarters are common and usually worth only their face value. However, collectors continue searching for outstanding uncirculated examples with strong luster, sharp strikes, and minimal contact marks. Certified coins in exceptionally high grades are much scarcer and can command substantial premiums in the numismatic market. Collectors are also interested in genuine mint errors from 1965, including doubled dies, off-center strikes, clipped planchettes, broad strikes, and other verified production mistakes. Such errors are uncommon and may be worth significantly more than ordinary examples depending on their rarity, condition, and authentication. The 1965 Washington quarter represents much more than a simple 25-cent coin. It marks the beginning of the modern era of circulating United States coinage and reflects how the country adapted to changing economic conditions while preserving the classic design Americans already knew. More than half a century later, the 1965 Washington quarter remains an important historical coin that reminds collectors of the dramatic transition from silver to clad coinage and its lasting impact on the history of the United States Mint. The 1977 Washington Quarter is an important chapter in the long history of United States coinage because it represents a period when the nation had fully transitioned from silver circulating coinage to the modern copper-nickel-clad composition introduced in 1965. By 1977, the economic challenges that had caused the silver coin shortage of the 1960s had largely been overcome, and the Washington Quarter had become one of the most widely used coins in everyday American commerce. The Washington Quarter series itself began in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of the birth of George Washington, the first President of the United States. Sculptor John Flanagan designed the famous portrait of Washington that appears on the obverse, while the reverse displayed the classic American bald eagle standing proudly on a bundle of arrows with olive branches below, symbolizing both military strength and the nation's desire for peace. This iconic design remained unchanged throughout 1977 and had become one of the most recognized coin designs in American history. Unlike the silver quarters produced before 1965, every regular 1977 Washington Quarter was struck using a durable copper core bonded between outer layers of copper and nickel, giving the coin its familiar silver appearance while making production less expensive. During 1977, the United States Mint produced these quarters primarily at the Philadelphia and Denver Mint facilities, with Philadelphia coins carrying no mint mark and Denver coins displaying the familiar D mint mark. Hundreds of millions of quarters were struck that year to meet the country's growing demand for circulating coins as the American economy continued to expand. These coins quickly entered banks, businesses, vending machines, parking meters, and cash registers, becoming an essential part of everyday life for millions of Americans. Although millions of 1977 quarters were produced, collectors remain interested in locating examples that have survived in outstanding uncirculated condition with original mint luster, strong strikes, and very few contact marks. Coins that receive exceptionally high grades from professional grading services are much more difficult to find because most entered heavy circulation shortly after leaving the mint. Numismatists also carefully examine 1977 Washington quarters for genuine mint errors such as double dies, off-center strikes, clipped planchettes, broad strikes, die cracks, and other authentic production varieties. These legitimate mint errors are significantly scarcer than normal coins and may command strong premiums depending on their rarity and condition. The 1977 Washington Quarter also reflects an important period in American history, as the nation experienced continued economic development, technological growth, and increasing use of modern automated vending equipment that relied heavily on quarter-dollar coins. Because of their durability, clad quarters proved highly successful and remained in circulation for many decades. Today, most circulated 1977 Washington quarters are common and generally worth face value, but beautifully preserved uncirculated pieces and verified mint error examples continue to attract serious collector interest. Beyond its monetary value, the 1977 Washington Quarter represents the stability of the United States Mint during a time when modern coin production had become more efficient than ever before. It serves as a reminder of how a simple 25-cent coin could play an important role in the daily lives of millions of Americans while also becoming a fascinating collectible for future generations. More than 4 decades later, the 1977 Washington Quarter remains an enduring symbol of American history, craftsmanship, and the continuing legacy of George Washington on United States coinage, making it an essential coin for collectors who appreciate both historical significance and the evolution of modern American currency. The 1977 Washington Quarter is part of one of the longest-running and most recognizable coin series in the history of the United States. The Washington Quarter series first appeared in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of the birth of George Washington, the nation's first president. The coin was designed by John Flanagan, whose portrait of Washington became a lasting symbol of American coinage. By the time the 1977 quarter was produced, the design had already been in circulation for 45 years and had become familiar to millions of Americans. The history of the 1977 Washington Quarter cannot be understood without looking at the major changes that took place during the previous decade. In 1965, the United States government introduced the Coinage Act of 1965, ending the production of 90% silver quarters for circulation because rising silver prices caused people to hoard coins. From that point onward, quarters were produced with a copper core bonded to outer layers of copper and nickel. The 1977 quarter continued using this clad composition, making it durable, cost-effective, and suitable for everyday circulation. The obverse of the 1977 Washington quarter features George Washington facing left, surrounded by the inscriptions, "Liberty, in God We Trust," and the date, 1977. The reverse displays the traditional heraldic eagle designed by John Flanagan. The eagle stands proudly on a bundle of arrows with olive branches below, representing America's strength and commitment to peace. This reverse remained in use until the state quarters program began in 1999. During 1977, regular circulation quarters were struck at the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint. Philadelphia coins do not carry a mint mark, while Denver coins display the D Mint mark. In addition, proof versions were produced at the San Francisco Mint for collectors. The United States Mint manufactured hundreds of millions of quarters during the year to ensure a steady supply for commerce throughout the country. The American economy in the late 1970s depended heavily on quarter-dollar coins. They were widely used in vending machines, laundromats, parking meters, arcade games, public telephones, and public transportation. Because of their constant use, most 1977 quarters entered circulation immediately after being minted and remained in circulation for many years. Although ordinary circulated 1977 quarters are common today, collectors actively search for coins with exceptional preservation. Uncirculated examples that retain their original mint luster and receive high grades from professional grading services are much scarcer than circulated coins and are more desirable in the numismatic market. Collectors also studied genuine mint errors from 1977. Verified examples of double dies, off-center strikes, clipped planchettes, die cracks, broad strikes, and other authentic mint-made errors are considerably rarer than normal coins. Their value depends on the rarity of the error, the overall condition of the coin, and professional authentication. Today, the 1977 Washington quarter remains an important historical coin, not because every example is rare, but because it represents the mature era of America's clad coinage system. It reflects a period when the United States Mint had successfully adapted to economic changes while maintaining the classic Washington design that Americans had trusted for decades. For collectors and historians alike, the 1977 Washington quarter continues to symbolize stability, craftsmanship, and the lasting legacy of George Washington on United States coinage. The 1980 Washington quarter is an important part of the long-running Washington quarter series and reflects the strength and stability of modern United States coinage during the late 20th century. The Washington quarter was originally introduced in 1932 to celebrate the 200th anniversary of the birth of George Washington, the first President of the United States. The coin replaced the standing Liberty quarter and featured a portrait of George Washington created by sculptor John Flanagan. His design quickly became one of the most recognized images in American history and remained on the quarter for decades. By 1980, the Washington quarter had already become an essential part of everyday life across the United States, used in banks, stores, vending machines, parking meters, public transportation, and millions of daily cash transactions. The 1980 Washington quarter was struck at the Denver Mint, which is identified by the small D Mint mark on the obverse of the coin. During this period, the Denver Mint was one of the busiest coin-producing facilities in the country, manufacturing hundreds of millions of coins every year to meet the growing demand for circulating currency. By 1980, the United States Mint had fully adopted the copper-nickel clad composition introduced after the Coinage Act of 1965. Unlike quarters minted before 1965, which contained 90% silver, the 1980 quarter was made with a pure copper core bonded between outer layers of copper and nickel. This new composition reduced production costs, improved durability, and allowed the mint to produce large quantities of coins efficiently while maintaining the familiar appearance that Americans recognized. The design of the 1980 quarter remained faithful to the classic Washington quarter style. The obverse displays George Washington facing left, surrounded by the inscriptions, "Liberty, in God We Trust," the date, 1980, and the D Mint mark beneath the date. The reverse features the traditional heraldic eagle standing on a bundle of arrows with olive branches below, symbolizing both military strength and the nation's commitment to peace. This reverse design remained unchanged until the introduction of the State Quarters program in 1999. During 1980, the American economy relied heavily on quarter-dollar coins. They were widely used in vending machines, laundromats, arcade games, parking meters, toll booths, public telephones, and countless everyday purchases. Because of this heavy circulation, most 1980D quarters quickly developed wear, making well-preserved examples much more difficult to find today. Collectors especially seek coins with strong original mint luster, sharp strikes, and very few contact marks. High-grade certified examples are considerably scarcer than ordinary circulated pieces. Collectors also study the 1980D Washington quarter for genuine mint-made errors. Authentic double dies, off-center strikes, clipped planchettes, die cracks, broad strikes, and other verified production errors are much rarer than standard coins and can be highly desirable when professionally authenticated. Their value depends on the type of error, the coin's condition, and collector demand rather than the date alone. Today, the 1980D Washington quarter is remembered as a symbol of the modern era of American coinage. While most circulated examples remain common and are generally worth face value, exceptional uncirculated coins and authenticated mint error varieties continue to attract serious collector interest. More importantly, the coin represents the continuing legacy of George Washington on United States currency and reflects the success of the United States Mint in adapting to changing economic conditions while preserving one of America's most iconic coin designs. More than 4 decades after it was struck, the 1980D Washington quarter remains a fascinating piece of American history and an essential coin for collectors who appreciate the evolution of United States coinage. The 1980D Washington quarter is an important coin in the history of modern United States coinage and represents the continued success of the Washington quarter series during a period of economic change and technological progress in America. The Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932 to honor George Washington, the first President of the United States, on the 200th anniversary of his birth. Designed by sculptor John Flanagan, the coin quickly became one of the most recognizable pieces of American currency. By 1980, the design had already served the nation for nearly half a century, with Washington's portrait appearing on the obverse and the majestic heraldic eagle standing on a bundle of arrows with olive branches on the reverse. The 1980D quarter was struck at the Denver Mint, which is identified by the small d mint mark located on the obverse of the coin. Like all regular circulation quarters produced after 1965, the 1980D quarter was made from a copper core bonded between outer layers of copper and nickel rather than the 90% silver composition used before the Coinage Act of 1965. This durable clad composition allowed the United States Mint to produce large quantities of coins efficiently while reducing production costs. During 1980, the Denver Mint produced hundreds of millions of Washington quarters to meet the growing demand for circulating coinage across the United States. These coins entered everyday circulation and became essential for vending machines, parking meters, public transportation, laundromats, arcades, and countless daily cash transactions. Because so many examples were produced and circulated heavily, most surviving 1980D quarters today show signs of wear and are generally worth only their face value. However, collectors pay close attention to coins preserved in exceptional uncirculated condition with sharp details, brilliant original mint luster, and very few contact marks. High-grade examples certified by professional grading services are much scarcer because very few coins survive in nearly perfect condition after decades of circulation. Numismatists also search carefully for genuine mint errors on the 1980D Washington quarter, including double dies, off-center strikes, clipped planchettes, die cracks, broad strikes, and other authentic production mistakes created during the minting process. Verified error coins can attract significant collector interest depending on the rarity of the error and the coin's overall preservation. The 1980D quarter also reflects an era when the United States Mint had refined its modern manufacturing methods, producing durable coins capable of withstanding years of everyday use while maintaining consistent quality. Although the design remained unchanged from previous decades, the coin continued to symbolize American history through its portrait of George Washington in its traditional eagle reverse. Today, the 1980D Washington quarter is appreciated by collectors not because every example is rare, but because it represents the stability and continuity of modern American coinage. It reminds collectors of a time when quarter-dollar coins played an essential role in everyday commerce throughout the country, and it continues to hold an important place in the Washington Quarter series. For many numismatists, finding a beautifully preserved 1980 quarter or a genuine authenticated mint-era example remains an exciting achievement, making this coin a lasting symbol of the craftsmanship, history, and enduring legacy of the United States Mint. The 1997 Washington Quarter is one of the final regular Washington quarters issued before the United States Mint introduced the famous 50-state quarters program in 1999, making it an important coin in modern American numismatic history. The Washington Quarter series began in 1932 to honor George Washington, the first president of the United States, on the 200th anniversary of his birth. Designed by John Flanagan, the coin featured Washington's left-facing portrait on the obverse and the classic heraldic eagle standing on a bundle of arrows with olive branches on the reverse, a design that remained unchanged for decades and became one of the most recognizable images in American coinage. The 1997 Washington Quarter was struck at the Denver Mint, identified by the small d mint mark on the obverse. By 1997, the Denver Mint had become one of the busiest coin-producing facilities in the United States, producing hundreds of millions of circulation coins each year to meet the country's growing economic needs. Like all regular quarters struck after 1965, the 1997 quarter was produced using a copper core bonded between outer layers of copper and nickel, replacing the older 90% silver composition used before the Coinage Act of 1965. This clad construction provided excellent durability while reducing production costs, allowing the mint to manufacture large numbers of high-quality coins for daily circulation. During 1997, quarter-dollar coins remained an essential part of everyday American life and were widely used in vending machines, parking meters, laundromats, public transportation, arcades, and countless retail transactions across the country. Most 1997 quarters entered circulation immediately after leaving the mint and developed normal wear over many years of use. Because of this heavy circulation, truly outstanding uncirculated examples with brilliant original mint luster, sharp strikes, and minimal contact marks are much more difficult to locate than ordinary circulated pieces. Collectors often seek high-grade certified examples because their scarcity increases significantly at the highest grades. The 1997 Washington Quarter is also carefully examined for genuine mint-made errors, including double dies, off-center strikes, clipped planchettes, die cracks, broad strikes, and other authenticated production mistakes. These genuine errors are much scarcer than normal coins and can command strong collector interest depending on the rarity of the error and the overall condition of the coin. An important historical fact about the 1997 quarter is that it was produced only 2 years before the launch of the state quarters program in 1999, which completely changed the reverse design of the Washington Quarter and introduced a new era of coin collecting in the United States. Because of this, many collectors consider the 1997 quarter part of the closing chapter of the original Eagle Reverse Washington Quarter series that had served the nation continuously since 1932. Today, while most circulated 1997 quarters remain common and are generally worth face value, beautifully preserved uncirculated coins and authenticated mint-era examples continue to attract collectors around the world. The 1997 Washington Quarter stands as a lasting reminder of the final years of the classic Washington Quarter design before one of the biggest changes in modern United States coin history, making it an important and meaningful coin for anyone interested in American numismatics, United States mint history, and the enduring legacy of George Washington on the nation's coinage. The 1987 Washington Quarter is an important coin in the history of modern United States coinage and represents the continued success of the Washington Quarter series during the late 20th century. The Washington Quarter was first introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of the birth of George Washington, the first President of the United States. Designed by sculptor John Flanagan, the coin quickly became one of the most recognized pieces of American currency. By 1987, the design had already served the nation for more than 50 years, with George Washington's portrait appearing on the obverse and the classic heraldic eagle standing proudly on a bundle of arrows with olive branches on the reverse, symbolizing both strength and peace. The 1987 Washington Quarter was struck at the Denver Mint, identified by the small D. Mint mark beneath the date on the obverse. Like all regular circulation quarters produced after 1965, the 1987 D quarter was struck in a copper-nickel clad composition with a pure copper core between outer layers of copper and nickel. This composition replaced the earlier 90% silver alloy and allowed the United States Mint to produce durable coins at a lower cost while maintaining the familiar appearance Americans expected. During 1987, the Denver Mint produced hundreds of millions of quarters for circulation, ensuring an adequate supply of coins for businesses, banks, vending machines, parking meters, laundromats, public transportation, and everyday commerce throughout the country. Most 1987 D quarters entered circulation immediately after being struck, and because of years of heavy use, many surviving examples today show noticeable wear. Collectors therefore pay special attention to coins that remain in outstanding uncirculated condition with sharp details, brilliant original mint luster, and very few contact marks. High-grade examples certified by professional grading services are considerably scarcer than ordinary circulated pieces and are more desirable among numismatists. The 1987 D Washington quarter is also known among collectors for genuine mint-made errors that occasionally occurred during production, including double dies, off-center strikes, clipped planchettes, die cracks, broad strikes, and other authenticated mint errors. These unusual production mistakes are much rarer than standard coins and can command significant collector interest depending on their rarity, condition, and professional authentication. Historically, the 1987 D quarter belongs to the final decades of the original Washington quarter design before the United States Mint introduced the 50-state quarters program in 1999, which completely changed the reverse design of the coin. Because of this, the 1987 D quarter represents the mature period of the classic Eagle reverse Washington quarter series that had faithfully served the nation for decades. Today, while most circulated 1987 D quarters are common and generally worth only face value, premium uncirculated examples and genuine authenticated error coins continue to attract collectors across the world. Beyond its monetary value, the 1987 D Washington quarter tells the story of American history, economic adaptation, and the lasting legacy of George Washington on United States coinage. It remains a meaningful collectible that reflects the craftsmanship of the United States Mint and preserves an important chapter in the evolution of modern American currency for future generations.